Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the launch of the WTM Global Trends Report 2013 in association with Euromonitor International. My name is Nicole Collett and I work as Press and PR Executive on World Travel Market. World Travel Market asked Euromonitor back in 2006 to help us compile a comprehensive report of the global travel industry from a regional perspective. The report has proved popular and it has run since 2007. And its popularity is a testament to the packed room I see in front of me. This is the 7th edition of the WTM Global Trends Report, which has a track record of predicting the trends. The report is split into chapters, each chapter representing a region of the WTM exhibition floor. Euromonitor International has assembled a high-level panel led by Head of Travel and Tourism Research, Caroline Brumner, to answer any questions you may have following the conclusion of the report's presentation. So without further ado, let me introduce you to BBC World News journalist Babita Sharma, who will present the findings.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. How are we all? Brilliant. It's always good, isn't it, the first day just to get you all started. My name is Babita Sharma. I'm from BBC World News, where I'm a presenter, and it's my pleasure to be back here for a second year to present the WTM Global Trends Report for this year in association with Euromonitor International. If I can just ask you before we begin to just put your mobile phones on silent, please. And if you can also mobile phones on silent, and I know some of you have got laptops and tablets, but just make them so that they're not very noisy, if you know what I mean. And I'm pleased to say that Angelo, Caroline and Nadia are here from Euromonitor International, and after this short presentation they'll be taking your questions. So any points you want to raise, please do put them to them, and I know that they'll be very happy about that, won't you? Absolutely. Okay, without any further delay then, let's get underway. The main findings of the Global Trend Report show that a new demographic group in America, the PANKs, professional aunt no kids, is keen for travel options. We're going to be exploring a little bit more about PANKs later on. Whilst in the UK, happiness is a new selling point for flight searches. Now, Europeans are embracing the new generation of peer-to-peer travel, and travel technology is turning towards the mobile channel to satisfy travellers' every need. In the Middle East, low-cost airlines are going up market and introducing business class style services. And if we look to Africa, child-friendly safaris are encouraging multi-generational holidays, whilst in Asia, if you can see there, China is becoming a key market for cruise companies. Hotels are opting for micro-stays in order to boost revenues, and social media in India is making waves across the travel industry. So, let's begin with a general global overview of what is happening. The global economy in 2013 has stabilized compared to 2012, with a 3.1% GDP growth expected for the year. Now, the International Monetary Fund is predicting an increase of 3.8% in GDP in 2014, and that's due to positive growth in the Eurozone and the US, as well as continuous growth in emerging markets. Tourist arrivals and inbound spending are predicted to continue over the period of around 2012 to 2017, and that's being boosted by increasing demand from the BRICS and other emerging markets. Now, online bookings are continuing to grow across the globe with the rise of local players such as China's Ctrip and India's Make My Trip, and further growth from established giants like Expedia and Priceline. Mobile bookings are starting to make inroads, reaching double-digit shares of sales for some players. Interesting to look at this in more detail. The global travel industry is expected to show steady growth for the next 5 years, with annual increases for arrivals and incoming receipts hovering around about the 4% mark. Now, online travel is the industry's star performer, with strong growth of over 12% expected this year, the rest resting at around 8% for the next 4 years. Now, this performance is generated not only from the fast-growing emerging markets, but is also helped by the strong online markets in Europe and the US. Now, Let's begin our look at the World Travel Market Global Trends Report in association with Euromonitor International by heading to the Americas, where a growing demographic segment is offering travel new opportunities. I love this phrase, PANK. Not that it means me, but it does. Standing for Professional Aunt No Kids is a recently coined name for women over 18 years old who do not have children, but have a close relationship with children of friends or relatives. Now, research by Savvy Auntie, an online community for PANKs, estimates that there are 23 million PANKs in the US who spend an astonishing $9 billion annually on children, and 48% of them enjoy traveling with their nieces or nephews. Now, in 2013, this year, Intrepid Traveller targeted the PANK market with its extended range of family adventure tools with web content, social media, dedicated emails, and advertorials. Now, according to Jared Asler, the Director of Marketing for Intrepid Traveller, the PANK market is sizable, it has huge potential, and is yet to be exploited, particularly in the travel vertical. Now, based on Intrepid Travel's research of this year, PANKs are interested in domestic travel, particularly Disney resorts in Hawaii, as well as Europe and especially the UK. Now, women are likely to continue to wait longer to have children, with some opting to remain childless. So PANKs are expected to grow in number, both in the US and globally. Now, in addition to this, the travel industry has great expertise in creating and marketing family products that will reap benefits by expanding that term family to encompass PANKs and other non-traditional types of family. Now, let's take a look at the UK, where happiness, you might not think it, but happiness is a major selling point for a flight meta search site. Launched in 2013, routehappy.com combines traveller experiences with low prices and flight availability. The startup differs from other players by providing flight happiness factors and happiness scores. Now, that's based on a scale of around about 1 to 10 to help consumers select flights based on comfort and suitability. Now, routehappy.com uses FlightPad. This is a proprietary database that studies airlines and airplanes globally to build an accurate database of flight product attributes, such as those key factors: legroom, Wi-Fi availability, in-seat entertainment, amongst other factors as well. Now, with more than 100,000 unique visitors at its launch, and over 30% return visitors in July of this year, the site provides a unique offering, and the UK is its leading European source of demand. Now, whilst the site has over 70% of traffic in the US, as you can see there, Europe and particularly the UK is now sharing over 10% of all demand, with the site striking a chord with UK consumers who are looking for some light relief after years of difficult economic times and, of course, austerity. Now, the routehappy.com business model paves the way for decommoditization of the flight sale, and it emphasizes the happiness factor as a key measurement. routehappy.com has the potential to become the airline industry benchmark for customer satisfaction, featuring the happiness rating which airlines and travelers can both adhere to. Other transportation modes, such as bus, cruise, as well as hotel and travel retail players, can also follow suit and adopt this happiness score approach. Looking to Europe now, the next generation of peer-to-peer travel options are continuing to grow in popularity. Now, recent developments in online commerce and social media have actually made sharing travel services easier, and this has led to new business models involving peer-to-peer options. Now, to counteract continued austerity, Europeans are entering the sharing economy that offers them opportunities at lower prices than ever before, as well as providing them authentic experiences. Rental accommodation offerings have become more numerous and more diverse, with Airbnb, House Trip, and Home and Away, among others, all able to meet a larger set of consumer demands. Tours, guiding and unique travel experiences are also offered by sites such as Tourist Link and Viable. I hope I said that right. Thank you. Where travellers get in touch with local residents. Now, car-sharing services are also growing very well, healthily in fact, in Europe. And in August 2013, BlaBlaCar.com had over 3 million members in 10 European countries and 600,000 members travelling each month. Now, private accommodation is predicted to carry on growing in terms of outlets and retail value in Europe for the next 4 years, with Spain in particular seeing a huge increase here. Value sales of private accommodation in Europe are forecast to reach around about $15 billion by 2017. It is likely that more major travel, retail and car rental companies will enter this category following the success of sharing services in the travel industry. Now, in cities like New York and Amsterdam, authorities have tried to limit that peer-to-peer accommodation services through regulations, and that's all down to the fact of issues concerning local taxes and residents' rights. However, these attempts are unlikely to succeed due to the strong popularity of the peer-to-peer trend among consumers around the world, which seems difficult to stop through this kind of regulatory process. Now, in travel technology, the concept of a mobile concierge is on the rise. Mobile internet devices represented a revolution for the travel industry, as they have introduced a new reservation channel, but they've also increased customer service expectations. Now, travel companies' customers expect real-time answers and a higher level of customization of services wherever they are and at any time before, during, and after their trip. Mobile concierge services are beneficial for travelers, allowing them to improve their holiday experiences, and for travel companies, which can deepen relationships with their customers. Now, examples of this include TUI Travel's digital assistant app. That offers customers advice prior to their departure, during the holiday, and also on their return. TUI plans to make the focus of this app a concierge service that helps customers with a holiday that they've already booked, but it also is a source of inspiration for their next trips as well. Now, smartphones are predicted to show significantly higher levels of global sales volumes leading up to 2017 than any other internet access devices such as laptops, desktops, and tablets. Now, well over 1 billion smartphones are expected to be sold annually throughout the world from 2014 onwards. And in the words of Peter Long, as you can see there, the CEO of TUI Travel, mobile is revolutionizing customer relationships. Now, by 2017, the mobile channel is expected to account for over 30% of online travel value sales. The area is expected to grow most within mobile concierge services, and they're offering, of course, that personalized advice as well as customers' assistance, requests, and feedback. Travel players will need to quickly adopt mobile concierge services in order to answer the growing needs of their customers, and crucially, not to lose out on business. Hotels are expected to use a mix of on-site and mobile concierge services in the future, with personalized services increasingly offered based on customer stored preferences. Now, airlines' customer service through mobile apps is expected to develop to offer personal assistance 24/7 throughout the entire trip, from planning logistics right through to emergency assistance. Now, let's explore the Middle East, where low-cost airlines are going upmarket. Luxury brands, as we probably all know, are important for Middle Eastern customers. And this is, of course, combined with high-end experiences that offer comfort and personalized entertainment. The penchant for luxury explains the widespread domination of 4- and 5-star luxury hotels in key destinations such as Dubai, where over 40% of hotels are luxury hotels. However, a surprising development is the introduction of luxury services aboard low-cost carriers in the Middle East. Jazeera Airways was the first to introduce a business class back in 2009, straying away from the low-cost model completely altogether, yet keeping those lower prices and achieving sound profitability. Now in 2013, Fly Dubai is following suit with its new business class services. 2012 saw nearly 15 million passengers carried in the Middle East by 5 low-cost carriers. Air Arabia, which follows the typical business model here, carried 5.3 million passengers, but Fly Dubai was a close second with 5 million and has now introduced a business class to its service. There are different reasons behind the service differentiations. While the Jazeera shift toward a traditional model had been the result of low profitability, the 2013 Fly Dubai business class tells another story, one of the low-cost carrier adding a luxury edge. Affordable luxury aboard planes appears to be an attractive segment, as business class tickets introduced by these low-cost carriers will be cheaper than traditional airlines business class. Now, it is likely that the Fly Dubai experience will reveal how sustainable and contagious this new business model really is. It is likely that hybrid business models will appear in other low-cost airlines, particularly in Asia, where luxury is also favoured. Now, let's head over to Africa. We're going on safari to see the big 5 with your little one. Multi-generational holidays here, where parents, grandparents, and children, they all travel together, is growing, and potential of family-friendly safaris is now finally being realised. Long considered unsuitable for children, safaris in Africa now offer itineraries that are altered to suit younger attention spans, avoiding long game drives and adding child-focused activities. And we all know how important that is on a family-friendly holiday. South Africa is a key destination for family safaris, as southern locations can offer malaria-free expeditions. Although Kenya, Malawi, Tanzania, and Zambia, they're also jumping on board this trend. Companies such as Africa on Foot and Rhino Africa, they organise child-friendly safaris throughout the continent, while the latter providing lodges, camps, and activities that cater specifically for children. South Africa, as you can see here, is the most popular destination to offer safaris, with over 10 million inbound arrivals expected in 2017, with Zimbabwe, Botswana, Kenya, Uganda attracting less visitors, but all showing growing arrivals figures nonetheless. An increasing number of visitors from the BRICS head to Africa. Child-friendly safaris will become more popular as many of these visitors travel in large family groups. Chinese and Indian visitors are also now key to inbound tourism in the region. Now, in future, African hotels and travel retailers will need to expand the services they offer in order to cater for the needs of this growing consumer segment. Combining family safaris in traditional locations like South Africa with activities in a different country such as Mozambique is a new concept already embraced by Cederberg Travel, for example. Now, multi-generational holidays in Africa could develop in future to encompass volunteerism, more sustainable holidays, and cruises. Now on to Global Village, where hotels are chasing that 24-hour traveller. Hotels have now learnt to adapt to difficult times and generate revenues from services such as spas, food and beverages, technologies, and more recently from the businessman on the go, businesswoman on the go too. Hotels have begun reimagining their spaces and timeframes to rent out spaces throughout the day when they're not being used, generating additional revenues. Now, the US and the UK markets are the most advanced for business-related microstays, but the trend is catching on in many more markets in Western Europe. The founder of Deus Hotels, David Lebe, states that they have seen significant opportunities following growth in their bookings and revenues. Now, the next move is to target secondary cities in countries already serviced, as well as enter new markets in Brazil, Canada, and Russia. Workspaces, They can be rented out to mobile businesses for around about $50 per hour. Room rates vary between $95 to $200 for day use of periods of about 3 to 12 hours around the world. Now, these hours are generally chosen to match cleaning shifts as well. The cost of a microstay is 30 to 70% lower than an overnight stay. And for example, Intercontinental Hotel in France charges €150 for rental day use instead of 400 to 500 euros for an overnight stay. Marriott, they've also introduced Workspace on Demand, an online platform that allows users to book workspaces across the US on an hourly basis. Now, based on the assumption that hotels will become offices of the future, this is very much likely to become a global trend. Onwards to Asia, and where cruises are fast becoming a popular holiday choice for Chinese travelers. Now, cruise holidays is relatively new, with consumer awareness still to fully develop. Yet it is registering healthy growth as Chinese travellers show an interest here. The Chinese government has even declared 2013 as Marine Tourism Year, with the latest 5-year plan dictating that cruise holidays should be encouraged. In 2012, for example, there were 285 cruise ship arrivals at ports in China. That's up 8.8% on the year before, 2011. And international cruise companies have vastly expanded in the region in 2012 and 2013. Now, for example, Carnival has opened offices in 5 Chinese cities to support its Princess Cruise brand. Now, the number of Chinese passengers at Royal Caribbean quadrupled from 25,000 to 100,000 just between the period of 2011 and 2012, with numbers predicted to reach 200,000 this year, 2013. Now, according to Pierluigi Foschi, the chairman and CEO of Carnival Asia, there is the potential for Asia to have over 7 million cruise passengers by 2020. Industry sources predict that China will become the second largest global cruise market after the US by 2017. The lack of infrastructure is the biggest impediment here to growth, which will require government intervention to improve and ensure a more integrated transportation solution. Fly and cruise packages to Southeast Asia will be the main area of expansion within the next 5 years. And they will be driven by Carnival, which has its cruise hub in Singapore, from which cruises depart for the Southeast destinations because they're benefiting from milder weather compared to North Asia. Now, locations further afield in Europe, the US, and the Caribbean, they're also likely to be a future focus area for development. Let's have a look at India for you now, where travel is being shaken up as social media really does hit the spotlight here. Social media, it's expanding in India with over 82 million Facebook users, making it the 3rd largest global market. Now, the vast majority of users are young urban customers who have been targeted by online travel companies by using social media to engage them and encourage travel bookings. Destinations in Southeast Asia are being promoted extensively by online travel companies through social media. Expedia India leads the way, advertising 50% of holiday prices to Thailand via Facebook. The company also launched the contest Travel Like a Boss, where participants can win a free trip to Bangkok by sharing on the site. Now, Make My Trip is also very active on Facebook with over 1.2 million likes, and recent promotions by the Indian online travel agents included budget packages to Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia. Online travel value sales in India are seeing strong growth in the next 5 years, with transportation and travel retail forecast to show over 15% growth this year alone. India is predicted to have over 300 million internet users by 2017, with more than 75% of them active on social media. Additionally, as smartphones and tablets become more mainstream among Indian travelers, the mobile booking channel is expected to soar, to completely take off here. The Indian Ministry of Tourism has recently started using social media to promote tourism sites in the country, and it also joined Facebook at the beginning of this year. 70% of all 4- and 5-star hotels in the first-tier cities in India had a presence on social media by August 2013. Leading Indian airline Jet Airways put social media at the centre of its marketing, involving 10 different departments in its social media activities for targeting consumers. That is the picture in India. That is the conclusion of the World Travel Market Global Trends Report 2013 in association with Euromonitor International. I thank you all very much for your attention, and we are going to invite you all now to please quiz our panel that have gathered here today from Euromonitor International. We have closest to me, Angelo Rossini, who is an online travel analyst, I should say. Caroline Bremner, who is Head of Travel and Tourism at Euromonitor International, and Nadia Popova, who is Airlines Analyst. Please give them a round of applause. Anybody got any questions to start with? Hi there. I think we're going to bring a mic to you, actually. Possibly not, but if you just... Oh, just this gentleman over here. Thank you. Can I get your title right? Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Fargakis George, and I represent middle-sized hotels from Greece. My question has to do with PANKs. In what way are the PANKs different than a regular family-based traveler? For the hotelier, what differences do they have from a typical family? Thank you.
It's a brilliant term, isn't it? PANKs. And I know that, Caroline, you know all about this and how the concept is devised. But yeah, just to answer the question, what is the difference between the standard family model and this term?
Like a family hotel?
Sure.
How would they have to change their services to get the PANKs, which are not typical families?
So how do you change a traditional model in a hotel for a family of, say, 4 to embrace this new concept? Sure.
Great. Well, first of all, the PANKs, we've identified, and also with the research from Savianti, that the average age of a PANK is about 36. So they belong to Generation Y. They tend to be professional women, so they're earning, they're very sort of savvy in terms of digital media, very active on social media, and they're also looking for a bargain as well. So they're obviously very clued up. So that's the PANK demographic. With regard to tailoring to them, obviously you need to be talking to them and communicating to them through social media, having multiple platforms to ensure you're reaching them and that the message is consistent across those. When it comes to in-destination and in terms of services, yes, slightly different. And we're already seeing this move within the travel industry and the hotels to accommodate away from the traditional family unit. So it's not necessarily just a room with an adjoining room where your kids can sleep, or a family room with 4 beds in it. That really doesn't cut it anymore. It's about ensuring that the options are relatively flexible. And that's why we're also seeing the rise of self-catering and villas, also particularly in destination attached to resorts. So again, it's not necessarily revamping it completely. It's trying to use your resources to the best of what they can provide and ensuring that you're targeting this market appropriately.
And it's not just women, it's punks as well.
That's right, yes.
Panks and punks,
so we've got the
way.
professional uncle no kids. So we've come a long way from the DINKs, which is the dual income no kids. So all these great acronyms. But yes, it's not just aunties, it's also uncles, or people who want to spend time with their godchildren. And it was quite staggering seeing the statistics from the US that 42% of those women aged between 15 and 44 are childless, but are interested in the children in their lives, and something like 50% want to travel and share those travel experiences with those children.
So some great opportunities, particularly domestically in the US, as we've highlighted, but also in places like the UK, which has great offer for children, mixing heritage, adventure, and those kind of things. A lot of free stuff as well, but also Europe, particularly with, and yeah, the list goes on. So there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, fascinating concept, isn't it? Anybody else? Any other questions here? Thank you. Andrew, I wanted to ask you actually, because we talked a lot about social networking, and you can't ignore it actually, whether it be in our industry, in journalism or travel industry, it's here to stay. How is it being used? As you mentioned in this report, we looked at its massive influence in India, for example. Are lots of people now, in your understanding, embracing it, or are they still a little bit more fearful of it?
Social media have been very important for the travel industry for the last years, already for a few years. But we must always consider that the model, the way travel companies are using social media, is different from the one they use other type of online promotion. For example, Google advertising works on the basis of a click and buy model. So companies through Google advertising can get revenues, can get sales in real time. Social media work more in a long-term perspective. The aim of social media is to engage consumers with a brand to gain their loyalty, and therefore to increase revenues not on a short-term basis, but on a long-term basis. This is now, very recently, starting to change a bit. And this is because of the fast rising we are seeing of social advertising. Advertisements put on websites like, on social media like Facebook, today works in a different way. They are personalized on the basis of the preferences of the profile of the person using social media. And information social media have stored about us are more and more. They own a large amount of data about us, which can be used for commercial purposes. So what we will see on a social media page are advertising already targeted at our preferences. The next step will be the launch by Facebook of social search. Particularly, it's called the graph search. And this is the type of search which is not based anymore only on relevance, like in a normal Google search, but is based especially on connections. And therefore, it is based on, for example, if you are searching for an hotel in Paris, you will see hotels in Paris where your friend stayed or about which your friends commented, and this is a very powerful tool.
And that is definitely happening on Facebook?
This is happening. It is being implemented at the moment gradually by regions. So in a few months' time, it will reach us as well.
So it's essentially beneficial for hotels to get on board with this concept, because if your friend's staying there and you get a recommendation, then you're more likely to stay there than you would if you're just doing a cold search on Google.
Definitely. It's like a word-of-mouth concept, which has always been traditionally very powerful in tourism, with a technology aspect to it. So it becomes much more powerful through technology because it can target much larger audiences.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. Anybody got any other questions? There's a lot in that report there. I'm just wondering if any of you wanted to pick up on any detail. Now's your opportunity to quiz the analysts and the writers behind it. Hi, the gentleman just in the far corner.
Hi, I'm quite excited. I'm now a punk. I think that demographic. Punk means something completely different to me. But anyway, there you go. Moving on, my name is Bob Atkinson from Travel Supermarket. You mentioned in there in the report about the mobile concierge. TUI in the UK have done an absolutely fantastic job on their mobile concierge service. And it's interesting because they offer something as a complete travel advisor, which is end-to-end, so everything from when you book all the way through to when you're away as well. So they can look after your total travel experience through that concierge service. What does the panel think about when maybe people are doing things independently? So they maybe have a flight booking with an airline, or even maybe with an airline via an agent. They've got a hotel either booked direct or, again, via an agent. maybe car rental in exactly the same way, and then you've even got intermediaries like ourselves who are price comparison who could also get in on that act. At what point does it maybe become so, how many concierges can one client potentially have, or is this really only going to work when someone's looking after your total arrangements? I'm interested in your comments on that.
Good question. Caroline?
Well, I was going to say, Angelo obviously is our online travel expert. But I think you're absolutely right. It's going to become very busy and very competitive. So, yeah, who's going to be in charge of the traveller's experience, as you say, end to end? I'm going to hand over to Angelo to follow up there.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Yes, this is exactly where we are seeing this trend heading. For the moment, mobile concierge services are still limited in number, but we think this is a strongly rising trend. And with the time, travel providers in all sectors will need to embrace it, because this is a consequence of the technological shift, which is today consumers and travelers accessing the internet more and more through their mobile devices. And this means that they expect now, there is a rising in consumer expectations. They expect now to receive customer service at any time of their trip, as you mentioned. And therefore, they are now always reachable, so they want to be able at any time to reach the company and ask for support, for example, in case of emergency or in case of any trouble they are experiences. And they will be very pleased if they will receive from the company the type of assistance TUI is planning to provide. Therefore, also from airlines, from hotel companies, to receive, for example, tips enabling them to enjoy a better travel experience through insights which can make their travel better. At the moment, we are seeing, for example, in cruise, there is an iConcierge application by Norwegian. We have a Radisson Intercontinental, which launched their mobile concierge services. In terms of airlines, there are some initial type of mobile support, like, for example, alerts in case of delays. But this is still very initial, and definitely airlines will need to invest more on it, as hotel companies will need as well.
I definitely think that there's also an opportunity for companies to come and manage all those apps and concierges. So you could have like an overarching app, a bit like Passbook with managing your loyalty programs. So there's momentum in that
Which
trend.
has done very well,
potential.
actually. Yeah, it's
yes.
had a big pickup, hasn't it? Is that something, Bob, that you're feeling is a way that the travel market might particularly look towards now?
Well, I can see the benefit of somebody consolidating it in one place. My concern as a consumer, if I put myself as an actual consumer flying, staying in hotels, doing that kind of thing, is I don't want to be talked at by hundreds, well, not hundreds, but loads of different companies on the same trip, all who have a vested interest in making me happy, but potentially all about selling me additional and further products as well. So I think that the issue for me is getting the balance right between service and then selling, because you don't want to switch people off by going too much down the sales route as opposed to the pure relationship route.
Yeah,
that would be my concern.
Interesting. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Just one word on this. And obviously, in case of applications, we have the pull and push system. And therefore, consumers are allowed, can choose to allow companies to send them push messages and therefore to contact them during their trip. In the same way, they can stop companies from sending push messages. And therefore, for example, during a trip to Paris, they can allow that hotel company, that airline, and if they like, maybe the tourism authority of Paris, to send them push messages, but no one else.
Sure.
So this privacy issue can be addressed.
There's one point I wanted to flesh out a little bit more in detail with the airlines analyst, Nadia. I know that we were looking in the report and we mentioned quite a bit of it regarding this no-frills business class. Even those words in one sentence, some would say, how can it be business class with no frills and all the trappings? But it seems to be working.
Well, a couple of points here. First of all, the starting point is that Middle East has always had a very different low-cost business model operating there, and that's really on the back of the fact that the consumer there is in love with luxury. But let's not forget that there is quite a lot of expatriate population in this part of the world, and they're taking advantage of the low-cost operation. And I think this is where the airlines in the region are trying to diversify, to try and find that different segment that they can appeal to. If you look in Europe, you can see that actually quite a lot of developments are going on between the schedule operators and the low-cost operators in the sense that they're stealing from each other. We have seen that quite a lot of schedule operators, the likes of Lufthansa, Air France, KLM, are having a low-cost arm in order to appeal to that particular segment and boost profitability. And on the other hand, we're seeing the likes of EasyJet, we're trying to pursue and lure more business travelers on board. So everybody really is trying to find that perfect formula in order to boost their profitability. And we're seeing that in the Middle East, this is how they're trying to diversify. And I think it's a very interesting concept because, as I said, the model there is different. The prices are not as low as they are in Europe to begin with. Then if you go to the onboard perks, you can see that the legroom is slightly different, more legroom for what you're paying actually. And also let's not forget that in the Middle East, we don't have a secondary airports that could bring that final end price go even further down. So yes, it's a very interesting and I think very exciting way of every region trying to find that appeal, that segmentation, and to diversify in the best way in order to boost profitability.
And also tapping into the idea that was very much pointed out in the report, which is this businessman or woman on the go as well, I would assume.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. Anybody got any other questions? Hi, gentleman just at the back there.
Hi there. My name's Richard Tapper, and I've got a question about something that I'm afraid wasn't on your presentation. It's about sustainability and tourism, and of course, sustainability has been a long-term trend in the tourism industry, and there's a lot being done on that. What my question is, it's about the certification side, which is getting quite a big push in some quarters. And I'm actually wondering if certification shows up at all in any of the trends that you're seeing, and whether it's really necessary. Performance, of course, is absolutely vital, but is there really very much demand from businesses and destinations for certification of performance? If you're performing well, do you really need it? So I'm just wondering if you see any trends regarding certification and sustainability in the data that you're looking at.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to comment. When we think about sustainable tourism, Africa really stands out as a region where they've been pushing on that. And also, several years ago, through the Global Trends report we presented on fair trade tourism. So they've been making some solid steps in making that certifiable and bringing in accreditation. And what we're seeing is the luxury operators, for example, the safari operators such as And Beyond that operate in Southern Africa, they're making some really sort of good progress and they're bringing in the trends of luxury, experience, and sustainability and wrapping it into one product and ensuring that the work that they do, that there isn't some damage in destination, and also that there is benefits directly linked to the local communities. So definitely we see that Africa is one of the regions that stands out for us. There were some very interesting comments from TUI, because obviously they are leading on sustainability in terms of travel retailers, saying that they're doing a lot of work with the sort of the travel life set up with the hotels, all sort of linked back to ABTA. But what they're seeing is that them as travel retailers are embracing it and bringing it into their core activities, but they don't see the same pickup from the online players. So it's almost like a challenge to the OTAs. Please bring in sustainability indexes to your offer. Let's have more official data about rankings of how how green is your hotel, how green is your airline, how green is your destination. And I think there's definitely a lot of room for that to grow. Any follow-up on them?
And if I can add, I think if we go to one of the regions that probably is doing baby steps, or at least not sufficiently in my view, in terms of sustainability, has been trying to improve on that side, and that's Middle East. And we have recently seen some interesting examples for quite a lot of investment being poured into Dubai and Sharia for establishing sustainable cities. So that's something that quite interesting in terms of being in accordance with the certification, and also to appeal to that particular opportunity and bring more passengers or travelers who can live in that part of the world, because we usually associate Middle East with slower, let me put it this way, in approaching the sustainability. So definitely there is a movement that we're seeing as part of travel and tourism industry as a whole.
Thank you. Any more questions before we wrap up? Hi there. I can hear you from here, but we'll wait for the mic to come around.
Thank you. My name is John Vernon Powell. We are independent tour operators here in the UK. Picking up on the point there, I mean, thinking more macro than micro regarding the longevity of the tourism industry, full stop. I mean, the statistics on China and the cruise people are phenomenal. Now, bearing in mind that, yes, the hoteliers, the tour operators are doing their best to sustain it, but you take Africa as an example, there is a real danger that in 5 years we may have no rhino and a handful of elephants. Now, if you look at somewhere like Egypt, where there's been a complete breakdown in control and the reports over the last 10 days of tombs being robbed and things like that, in the sort of global report of tourism, have you seen any advancement, engagement within the sort of global community from government levels at all?
That's a very interesting question, because obviously we see so much that's happening with a lot of destinations affecting the tourism, like you've mentioned. It's an interesting point.
I mean, the bottom line, sorry, just on that as an example, if you take the rhino, it is obviously a particular crisis point, but you're no longer dealing with poachers locally. You're dealing with gunships that are coming in and just taking them out. So, there's no way the travel industry is going to be able to support and sustain its product in a destination like that.
I think at this point it's, in a way it's good that the World Tourism Organization falls under the banner of the UN, because then, the travel industry is operating within a wider context, which is political. It's dealing with sort of the broader issues that you're raising, particularly on the likes of conservation, preservation of heritage, etc. So bringing in UNESCO. So yes, I feel that those big, those overarching bodies and the sort of the synergies that they can achieve is very important for addressing such major issues as you've highlighted.
But clearly, I mean, from my understanding, I would have thought that would be something that's at governmental level that would then translate into the tourism industry. It's almost, you can't have one without the other. And it's got to be down to regulation and legal framework for that to sort of be apparent and have a knock-on effect in terms of how travel and tourism is being promoted in the particular countries.
I think I'm right in saying your statistics with the cruising was it 5 years there's going to be a tenfold increase in Chinese in cruises. Now, cruises, if you like, is the sort of early part of their development as international tourism industry. Now, if you multiply those figures into safaris or heritage sites or whatever, it's going to be a huge issue for management.
Yeah, I mean, obviously one of the biggest trends that I've heard for all the conferences this year is China outbound. So the UN WTO predicts that there's going to be 200 million outbound Chinese traveling around the world by 2030.
I mean, that's incredible.
So, yeah, that's a huge amount, and it has massive capacity issues. And I think the travel industry is aware of that. China is aware of that. They're already talking about, they're going to be suffering a deficit because so many people are leaving the country than are actually visiting China. So there is an awareness that we have to manage this responsibly, sustainably, and for the long term, and to ensure that communities benefit from it as well. So, we've had the recent news about the visa relaxation in the UK. That's obviously going to encourage more Chinese to visit the UK. So that is a good thing, but we also need to be prepared, and that's in terms of customization of product, having the right language skills. And similarly, around Asia, they're all very excited about the potential for outbound Chinese to their countries. And it's about sort of ensuring that it's well managed in destination, as well as ensuring there's no long-term damage. So I think the cruise is very interesting. For now, it's restricted. So basically, you have Chinese traveling to very few countries within Asia. So you have Japan, Korea, wherever there's visa facilitation. And then also, we're going to see more development in the Southeast Asian part of the Chinese cruises. But for now, it's a kind of a slow development. And also the long-term trend for that is that we'll have more Chinese traveling internationally on cruises. So that's where we see that trend going.
Lots of food for thought on that question. Thank you. Just any final questions on the floor, please? Gentleman again at the back. I think we'll make that the final one.
Hi, I'm afraid it's not so much a question as a comment on the previous discussion, and that is, I totally agree about the role of governments in providing the regulatory framework. The big problem is that the government role very, very often lags hugely the pace of tourism development and what businesses are doing. And when I'm speaking to tourism businesses, responsible tourism businesses are complaining, yes, we want to do things, but we're not having the sort of underpinning regulation and planning and sort of support that we need from the public sector. And that means that it's very, very easy for others to come in and just take a free ride and undermine the work and investment that the most responsible businesses are doing. So I think there is a big question mark that the industry has to address, and that is how on earth can you start to get government up to the same level so that it's fulfilling its part of the package, as it were, and helping the sector create sustainable tourism and destinations for the longer term.
Absolutely. If only we had all the governments in the world on this stage, it would be an easier place, wouldn't it? Any final questions? In that case, I want to thank you all very much for your attention, and thank you. And if you want to come and talk to Angelo, Caroline, and Nadia yourselves, then please do take the opportunity. But for now, thank you very much.